Thank you, Mo. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. That's who I am, and we're going to explore together a little bit of inquiry-based learning, which to me is what complements deeper learning for younger students. So to begin with, I will start with a story, and I will stop the story at some point, and I will ask you some questions. So once upon a time, there was a mother with two children, a boy and a girl, who lived in a small house near the forest. And they had a happy life, but they also had a problem. The mother had a problem. Her children were super smart, and they were asking questions all the time. Mom, how does this work? Mom, who made this? Mom, why is this the way it is? So the mother was fed up with all these questions. And one day she said, if you ask one more question, I'm going to take you to the top of the mountain where the old wise lady lives. So before I go on with the story, I want to ask you, what kind of questions do you think the children were asking? They were 8 years old. To help you, give me in the chat box some questions you think these children were asking. Give me some questions an 8-year-old child would ask. Who created me? Perfect. Anyone else? What's money? How is water made? Lovely questions. Okay. So I was telling this same story, where is God, to a group of first graders, 6-year-old students. Here I am, and here are the students. And I asked them to give me some questions that the children in the story were asking. And this is what they said. If you dig really deep, what will you find? What are some things blue? Why do we have questions? Where is Dad? Where's Dad in the story? How do butterflies fly? Why isn't there a spring in our garden? Why are you so tall and yet have such small ears? I'm not that tall. My ears are relatively small, but that's what impressed them. So see the questions the first graders had. This is what inquiring minds or inquiry-based learning is all about. And I will break it down into pieces to show you a little bit of its background, the theoretical background, but also its implementation. So before that, let's have a look at how the English language teaching ecosystem is today. What teachers do and what teacher training programs also do is focus on teaching. So we, as a teacher trainer, when I do my observations for teacher trainees, I just observe how they teach, and I write down how they teach, and I give them a pass or a fail or a feedback on how they teach. And this is how all teacher training programs are organized. Also, if you look at how teachers teach and how course books are made, basically you will see that the syllabi are grammar driven. And in a way, I think even if you look at a little bit more modern course books, you'll see that in a way they're glorified grammar books. So you have a little bit of CLIL, a little bit of STEAM, a little bit of communicative approach, a little bit of storytelling, but the syllabus, like the core of the course book, is based on grammar. So you just put some extra bits and pieces to make it look fancier, but it's really what it used to be, just with more sparkle. Another thing is that we assume that learning happens linearly. And I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll share it again because I want to show you an irrelevant, perhaps, video, very short one from YouTube, Okay, let me share my screen again. And it's astronomy. Hold on. I want to show you a little bit of astronomy. And it's about how we believe, how we perceive the universe, and how the universe really works. So hold on. Okay. How we think our solar system works. And this is how it actually works. Okay. So I think it's the same thing with learning. We believe that learning happens linearly. We have this, because this helps us understand it better. But in reality, learning happens in unpredictable and non-spatial temporal ways. We believe that that learners learn what we teach them, but this is not the case. Learners learn some of the things we teach them, but they also learn outside the classroom. And if by learning we mean remembering and storing in their long-term memory, then crazy things happen. It's very unpredictable what will stick with each one of us. So if you look at the science of mathematics, which is a field that explores the art of learning, you will get an idea of how I believe we should shift the focus from the teacher to the learner. When we observe teachers teaching, in fact, we should be focusing on what learners do and how they're learning. So, of course, what teachers do is important, but we need to check if it works or not. And I think this is a very important shift towards more learner-centered, but also more learner-led curriculum. So, but why is there a need to shift our focus towards learning and stop focusing so much on teachers and their teaching? So if you again take a look at what actually happens in the classrooms, everybody's in a hurry. If you ask teachers, what do you need more? They will say, I need more time. Okay, we also say we need more money, but teachers need more time. We're constantly in a hurry. We want to cover the material, the syllabus, the textbook. And we tend to forget what our students actually learn and how they will use it in their own lives for their own purposes. So we sort of marginalize students. They're not part of their own learning. They study just because we tell them to study, sometimes because we threaten them with grades, with assessment. If you don't study, I'm going to take points off. And they don't have a purpose to study. They don't study to learn more. They don't study because they're in a journey seeking out more knowledge. They cannot relate to the subject they study. They just study because their teacher told them, because society tells them this is what you should do, because their parents told them. There is no intrinsic motivation whatsoever. But if we give them more autonomy and more choice, and I will not say if we give them voice, but if we listen to the voice because they have a voice, these are the things that can happen. They will be involved. This will boost their self-esteem because they're part of the process. They will be motivated. They will think critically. Their memory will work better. They will become aware of their learning process, and they will become independent. So how can we reinforce this autonomy? By giving them choice. also by focusing on content instead of language points. I mean, there's no thing in life without language. Everything has language. All content is language-based. So if I study astronomy, I do it through language. That's why some scientists say that whatever you study in reality, you study language. You study math, but whatever you interpret in your head as numbers or concepts, spatial concepts, this is language. There's no other way to think. So we need to focus more on content that interests and engages our learners. We should also help them by letting them ask and answer their own questions, like the one you saw at the beginning with the story with the mom and the two children. And involve them in all aspects and steps of a lesson: choice of topic, choice of content, choice of activities, choice of homework, choice of assessment. And you'll see how. Now, this is why we developed this language education framework for children between 6 and 12 years old, which we call Inquiring Minds. This is just a brand name. It basically means inquiry-based learning. And within this framework, language is just a means to explore the world. It's not an end in itself, but by using language to explore the world, you learn more about the world, more about yourself, but also more language. The theoretical background of Inquiring Minds is, first of all, critical pedagogy. So we do not just teach anything, language in our case, to learn the subject matter, but because we want to create a better vision of the world, because we want to emancipate, to help our learners emancipate themselves, but also to have teachers who are emancipated, who can go away from the dictatorship of course books and syllabi and curricula, who can, and in our classrooms, we model a better world, a world that is more fair, that is freer, that is equal, that gives equal opportunities to everyone. So critical pedagogy means we don't just teach one thing, we teach the vision of a better world out there. Inquiring Minds also is based on Montessori pedagogies. I will not say that it's a Montessori framework, but as you will see later when I show you the examples, it involves moving around in the classroom, choosing stations of work, and this is a very Montessori principle. It's also based on cognitive development because learners have different questions as they grow up. So the content of our lesson needs to be age appropriate and question driven, curiosity driven, if you want, based on our learners' cognitive development. And of course, it's also based on John Dewey's experiential learning, experiential education principles in his book, Experience and Education, and in all his books. Now, Ron said something at the end of the previous talk. He talked about holistic learning. One thing we need to be aware of and a bit cautious about is the misuse of words like experiential learning, holistic learning, or even innovation in education. They all seem a little bit like buzzwords that we use to just post on social media. And there's a lot of social engineering around all this. So experiential learning is not, I use a grammar-based course book. I do 100 of grammar vocabulary exercises. And then once a month, we have 10 minutes of making cookies, and I take 100 pictures and I upload them on social media. And I say, this is what we do in our school. So there's a lot of that. I wish it were true. It would be great if we're all doing experiential learning. I'm afraid it's not. So and also another thing is not all experiences are good. Some experiences promote education, some others do not promote anything, and some others are negative. So when we talk about experiential learning, we need to discuss very carefully what kind of experiences we organize for our learners. I recently saw, to me, a horrendous example of experiential learning where very young children were playing wedding in the classroom, organized by the teacher. So they were dressed up as a bride and a groom, and they had all the wedding, props. And I found this extremely stereotypical and many other things. I'm not going to say them now, but I don't think it's appropriate. And it might be teaching children the language on weddings, but it also teaches them way more than that. And this is not good experiential learning. Now, Inquiring Minds addresses children between 6 and 12. It is based on their hunger to learn, the constant curiosity they have, and their need to explore the world around them. And it's also based on their need to see and do stuff to understand the world. So we bring the world to them, or we take them outside the classroom for them to explore the world. It's based on choosing topics that are interesting for the learners, not for the teacher, not for the coursebook authors, not for the publishers, but the children, the learners. And of course, it's about communication because it's a language education framework about sharing experiences. And learning, of course, is achieved through communication. Now, the main features, number one, choice. Learners choose their next question, which corresponds perhaps to a unit in the book. They choose the materials through which they're going to explore the question. They choose the activities. Inquiring Minds is about going outside the classroom. It's not restricted in the four walls of the classroom. Observing what is happening out there. I mean, it's a very multisensory approach. There is a final project that students do in groups, like project-based learning, right? They have to present their project that answers the big question that guided the whole lesson. There is a science component or STEAM, if you want. And you can use a STEAM book or a suggested syllabus, and there's tons of things you can find online on STEAM. It's all over the place, experiments you can connect to the big question. It also involves field trips once a month. It ends with a science fair inside the school and a children's summit with all schools that share the same framework. Now, some big questions that students have chosen to explore. What's fun about being outdoors? Where do animals live? Where do we live? Why do people write poems? How do our bodies work? What connects us? And the first step, you ask them, now we have to choose one of these big questions. Which one do you want to learn more about? You give them a choice. How you can do that, you can post the questions in your classroom, on the wall. You can hold an online poll. Sometimes I create mini scavenger hunts with questions, and they find them, and then they vote which question they want to explore. So it's also a very democratic framework. And then you start with choice. I will show you, not yet, but in a while, a little bit of a model Inquiring Minds lesson that I have uploaded on YouTube. And I can send you the link in the chat box, or you can go to my YouTube channel, Maria Davou, and find this and other interesting stuff on deeper learning and Inquiring Minds. So the second step is, a little bit of eliciting schemata and vocabulary, what I know about the topic, what I want to learn about the topic. Here, the teacher helps with giving language. writing language on the board. And you know, this moment when learners ask, how can I say, is important for vocabulary retention, because it's their own need to learn vocabulary. And then, of course, we use a lot of multimodality. So you can use videos, pictures, VR or AR. You can ask them what other questions they have about the big question, what more they want to learn. And step 3, and this is the Montessori thing I was telling you about, is that you have stations around your classroom with different resources. Each team chooses one station. They spend time, they collect information about the big question. The teacher just moves around and monitors, supports, gives language, and so on. The 4th step is sharing. So you have a sharing circle, and each team presents something they found about the big question. And they might have found a story, a folktale, scientific facts. They might have found art. They might have found something no one knows about. So each team contributes with something different. Step 5 is language focus. So now here you can go to your course book, you can go to your workbook, to your supplementary books, and do activities that help students practice the language on the topic. So you always need to have a thematic link. Of course, here the teacher can give vocabulary support because schemata are activated and learners are ready to fill in their heads with new words they will use to explore the topic. And of course, you can also use web tools. There's so many out there to present vocabulary, check vocabulary, help with vocabulary, and so on. Step 6 is the science part of Inquiring Minds, where we do experiments. Like this. Very simple. You'll find them everywhere on Pinterest, on Google, and everywhere. And then step 7 is the answer. So we go back to our KWL, what I know, what I want to know. What did we learn about this big question? And students in groups, again, present their projects, or they might want to present their artwork. So the answer to the big question is not necessarily a factual project. It can be dramatization. It can be a song. It can be a performance. It can be art. It can be anything they want. So again, they have choice. The 8th step is the assessment. So there is self-assessment involved, peer assessment, very important. We do not just assess language, we also assess content. So if our topic was the solar system, the questions we're going to have in the quiz are not just language related, they're also like, which is the largest planet in our solar system? Which one is closer to Earth? And so on. So you might say, do they need to know that? I mean, if they wanted to learn it, then why not help them remember it? And through answering these content-based questions, they learn the language. And here are some assessment ideas. Quizzes, as I said, that test both content and language, rubrics for self and group assessment and peer assessment, reflection journals. I always use the WILT at the end of my lessons, which stands for what I learned today. And at the beginning of your lessons, you can start with Willie, what I learned yesterday. So you connect your lesson to what happened before, and then at the end of the lesson, you go back through this very, very simple metacognitive tool, what I learned today. And then, of course, you can use traditional exams, but with a twist, like take-home exams, open book exams, collaborative exams, research-based exams. So they can assess their group work. They can go back and reflect on their hard work, how they did at different stages of their project exploration. And The ninth step is, where can we go now? So we explored this question about the solar system. Where can we go? Let's organize a field trip. Again, learners are involved. So they will look for information in the mother tongue, like, can we go to the observatory? When is it open? How can we book our field trip? And they can create brochures or leaflets, write an email for parents, create a mini poster with all the information, and invite other students. So here again, you can see examples of how Inquiring Minds works step by step with more details example. I mean, look at this one. This big question here was about music. What is music? And my students came up with these questions. Are all sounds music? Do birds make music? Where does music go when we don't listen to it? Do we all hear the same melody? Do we all like the same music? Why? Why not? Is there good and bad music? So these are their questions. These are their questions about music. And they're so deep and philosophical and existential and amazing. Like, why not take advantage of this curiosity burst and base our syllabi on it instead of course books? Then, I mean, here's an example of how we explored music. I brought musical instruments. We had web quests, course books, storybooks, articles, videos, and we actually listen to music. I'm going to give you like a moment to have a look at it. Then you can see what we did for the focus language work, A and B. So as you can see, at every step of the process, students are given choice. And what I've observed is that this makes them way more responsible when it comes to homework, because everything is their choice. So why not do it? This is how we went outside the four walls, outside the classroom. We sat silently. We collected sounds and we wrote them down. And then we discussed, was this music? Why or why not? Like, is the car sound music? And if not, why isn't it? Then we had the project presentations. Some wrote stories, some wrote poems. Some did science experiments. One thing I want to say here, because I was teaching yesterday, when I ask my students to write, they're always bored. When I ask them to do creative writing, they cannot stop writing. So yesterday I gave them 5 words and I said, write a story with these 5 words. Make sure it doesn't end well. It has an unhappy ending. And at the end, draw a picture of the story, of one instant in the story. You would not believe the wealth of language production I received. And if I ask them, to do an exam prep task, a writing task for an exam, they always count the words because they're never enough and they want to add something more and they're bored and they hate it. I mean, why not give them things that motivate them? This is the metacognitive step we talked about. And then the assessment. So I gave them both summative assessment, but I always gave them a choice, even in the summative assessment part. So for example, they were given the quiz, but at the end, they could add their own question and answer it. Or you can give them a choice of which questions in the quiz they will answer. So again, they co-create the assessment instrument. At the end of all this process, of the Inquiring Minds process, we have the Children's Summit. And it's something like that. Students, we gather in an outdoor space and they present their work. And, visitors, parents, other teachers, other students move around and they ask them and they present in English, of course. And it might be artwork, it might be, this was optical illusions and body tricks, different things, dioramas. Oh, these guys were dressed up as, it was like a wax museum, as figures they've worked on and researched, and they had to answer questions about their lives. Like here, same experiments and fun, of course. So, what do we do in Inquiring Minds? First of all, we break the linear syllabus because learning is not linear, as we said. So we don't follow the order of the units in a course book. We follow students' choice on big questions, and then we match this big question to a unit in our course book. If you use course books, that is. This is another discussion and another talk. We give choice of contents to learners, and we give choice of materials to learners. What has happened with Inquiring Minds so far? We have created a teacher training course at level 5. It's accredited. We have created a research and praxis team by a group of PhD students or holders who observe what happens in Inquiring Minds classrooms. They take lots of notes, and they come up with suggestions for possible changes. We do not call homework anymore. We call it dwelling, because we want our learners to sit back and think, and we give them like sort of weird homework dwelling tasks, like for example, look outside your window for 15 minutes and write in your journal what you saw. Then make a TikTok out of it. We have created an Inquiring Minds Teachers Day, a mini conference where all teachers who use this method present ideas that worked with their classes. We hold mini events around Greece, and there are more than 100 schools in Greece and Cyprus that work with this framework, inquiry-based learning or Inquiring Minds. And this is just a quote for inspiration. I'll go back to the butterfly story, though, because remember the mother said, if you ask one more question, I'm going to take you to the top of the mountain where the old wise lady lives. And then the girl said, but Mom, why? That's it. Pack your things. We're going to go to the top of the mountain now. So off they went. When they reached the top of the mountain, the old wise lady came out. She was very, very old, like 200 years old. And the mother said, old wise lady, could you please keep my children for 1 month? Because they keep asking me questions I cannot answer. You are wise, you have the answers. The old wise lady happily accepted because she loved company and she loved answering questions. The mother was also very happy because she would be free of questions for a whole month. The children were also happy because it was a month without school. So now the children kept asking the old wise lady questions, and she had all the answers. But they got angry. They wanted to find the one question she wouldn't be able to answer. But she could answer everything. So one day, as they were playing in the forest, the girl said, brother, I got her. The girl had caught a beautiful blue butterfly. We'll go to the old wise lady and ask her, is the butterfly dead or alive? If she says it's alive, I will kill it. If she says it's dead, I will let it fly. Yes, said the boy, sister, you got it, let's go. So they went outside the cave. They called the old wise lady out, and they asked her, old wise lady, is the butterfly dead or alive? The old wise lady sighed, then she smiled and said, the beautiful blue butterfly is... What did she say? Can you send me your answers in the chat box? What did she say? Okay, maybe she's dead, but then the girl will let the butterfly fly. So the old wise lady will make a mistake. They will trick her. Old wise lady, is the beautiful blue butterfly dead or alive? The old wise lady sighed. Then she smiled and said, the beautiful blue butterfly is in your hands. In your hands, literally, but also her life is in your hands. It depends on you. So I wanted to end with this story just to point out that our learners are full of questions, and it's in our hands not to kill their curiosity, but to help them ask more questions, to provide a space where these questions are valued and they help them learn the language better and deeper. And it's in our hands. Thank you so much.